The usually aloof Shenbi Ru even smiled when she heard the dialogue above. This type of indirect insult was very common on Earth, but it was completely new in this world. Seeing the goddess's expression, Shang Bin felt as though he was being mocked, his face changing, switching between red and white, but because he was standing in front of the goddess, he forcibly restrained his anger to maintain his demeanor, not daring to strike Zhang Xuan directly. "What? Is there anything wrong with what I said?" Suppressing his rage, Shang Bin sneered. "Everyone in the academy knows your level. This chubby brat who just came to my classroom is fat as a pig and useless. Other than defense, he knows no martial arts. His punching force is only about 15 kilograms. In the new student exam, if he wasn't ranked last, he was close to the very bottom. If he isn't trash, what is he?" Even if he couldn't strike Zhang Xuan, he had to at least verbally abuse him to make him lose face. "What? Is there anything wrong with what I said?" Suppressing his rage, Shang Bin sneered. "Everyone in the academy knows your level. This chubby brat who just came to my classroom is fat as a pig and useless. Other than defense, he knows no martial arts. His punching force is only about 15 kilograms. In the new student exam, if he wasn't ranked last, he was close to the very bottom. If he isn't trash, what is he?" Shenbi Ru said nothing more, lifting her feet and walking straight ahead. In her mind, Zhang Xuan was just trying to save face with an excuse. A student who was both fat and older and had never learned basic knowledge would certainly have a very limited path to success in the future. That hateful guy. Seeing the goddess in his heart talk to the worst teacher in the school, even encouraging him to strive. Shang Bin was furious, his expression crumpled, and the rage in his heart grew stronger. He coldly glared at Zhang Xuan, then followed Biru and left. "Biru, you should interact less with this kind of person in the future to avoid damaging your image." Before Shang Bin could finish speaking, Zhen Biru turned and walked away. "That unbearable, hateful guy! Zhang Xuan, you just wait for me. I absolutely won't forgive you." Seeing the goddess in his heart walk far away until her beautiful figure could no longer be seen, Shang Bin vented all his anger onto Zhang Xuan. He felt that if it weren't for running into that unlucky fellow, his goddess surely would not have turned and left, but would have agreed to have dinner with him. The teacher's classroom. "Since you've accepted me as your master, you should at least know where my classroom is, right?" Seeing the two leave, Zhang Xuan didn't pay them any mind. He spoke to the chubby youth to establish their relationship. "Yes!" The chubby youth hastily stood up, eyes squinting into a smile as he looked over. "Teacher, I am now the teacher's student, so tell me, which teacher are you in this school?" Hearing his question, Zhang Xuan frowned and rubbed his forehead. He truly was helpless with this chubby guy. He rushed to acknowledge him as his master the moment he saw him, yet he still didn't know who he was until now. "My name is Zhang Xuan." "Zhang Xuan? Is that Teacher Zhang? The one with the 0 evaluation score, who ranks last among all the teachers in the school?" The chubby youth finally realized who he had just accepted as his master. The layer of fat on his body trembled uncontrollably. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he nearly burst into tears. "Yes, that's me," Zhang Xuan nodded. "Oh, Teacher Zhang Xuan." The chubby youth scratched his head. "Teacher, look at me. My strength is poor. I'm not smart, and I'm fat. How about the teacher cancels my enrollment?" Zhang Xuan was speechless. "Teacher, I'm being serious. The two teachers just said it too. How about the teacher removes my name from the class? Otherwise, I'm afraid I'll drag down the teacher's reputation."
The chubby youth desperately tried to persuade him. The teacher is not afraid of being dragged down. Furthermore, let me tell you, once you've dropped blood on my identity token to authenticate your identity, you are my student in life and my student in death, so stop talking so much nonsense here. Zhang Xuan waved his hand. The chubby youth's face crumpled as if he was about to cry. His strength was poor, which is why he wanted to find a good teacher to guide him to make his future path brighter and wider. Yet he never dreamed in his wildest imagination that the bottom-ranked teacher would accept the bottom-ranked student. Why is my luck so terrible? All right, this is the teacher's classroom. Go collect your bedding and remember to come on time tomorrow, Zhang Xuan said softly. This classroom? Seeing the size of the classroom, the chubby youth wanted to cry again. In the local examinations he attended before, the classrooms were much larger than this place. Such a small classroom could only fit a few students. Teacher, if I don't come to class tomorrow, can the teacher expel me from this class? The chubby youth secretly hoped. Expel you? Oh no. The teacher will throw you into the lake you wanted to commit suicide in earlier for the turtles to eat. Zhang Xuan seriously nodded. Didn't the teacher already say, "You are my student in life and my student in death, so stop talking so much nonsense here"? Teacher! Zhang Xuan hadn't finished speaking when the chubby youth interrupted him. His expression was serious, his eyes firm, as he asked, "What time should I come to class tomorrow? I will arrive early to clean the room. Meeting a good teacher like the teacher is my honor, so in the future, even if someone else comes to accept me as a student, I will refuse them and I will flatly scold them." Zhang Xuan was speechless. He had thought that he himself was shameless. He never expected that the student he recruited would be even more shameless.
Zhang Xuan finally found a way to dismiss the chubby youth after much effort. After arranging everything, Zhang Xuan realized the sun had set and was almost gone in the west. It was nearly dark. So, my class only has 5 students. Zhang Xuan shook his head. Today was the last day for accepting students. By this time, the recruitment period had officially ended. He had originally thought no one would come to his class today, yet he surprisingly managed to recruit 5 students. For a teacher who always ranked last like him, this was already a very good achievement. Closing the classroom door, Zhang Xuan relied on the memories of the body's previous owner to navigate his way home. As a teacher in the academy, he had a private residence. However, it really was just a small room, only about a dozen square meters in size. Before long, Zhang Xuan reached the dormitory, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. Looking briefly at the facilities in the room, he couldn't help but sigh. It must be said that the previous owner of this body truly lived a miserable life. The room was tiny, not to mention damp and moldy. The bedding had long been mildewed. He truly wondered how that guy managed to sleep before. Forget about the past. He had to teach tomorrow. Now he needed to check his cultivation level and then try to raise it. After all, he wasn't hungry right now. Zhang Xuan tried to recall the cultivation method from the memories. Then he sat cross-legged on the bed. As a transmigrator, although he possessed the previous owner's memories and was not unfamiliar with cultivation, he felt excited every time he thought about getting stronger and stronger. Now that he had finished recruiting students, the thing he needed to focus on was diligently cultivating to increase his strength. After all, in this world, strength was the most important thing. Although the Library of Heaven's Path could show him the gate of life and the flaws of others, he could only use it to fight opponents whose strength was equal to his or slightly higher. In such cases, defeating the opponent was simple. However, against overly powerful opponents, even if he could see their flaws, he might not be able to win. If he couldn't match the opponent's speed, let alone injure them, he might unfortunately be treated like a test subject and be chopped into pieces. Therefore, no matter how formidable the Library of Heaven's Path was, it was not a treasure that guaranteed absolute victory forever. If he wanted to be stronger than others, diligent cultivation was the wisest approach. This cultivation method is called the Hungtan Ninefold Cultivation Art. This is a technique created by someone in Hungtan Academy, consisting of 9 layers, with each layer corresponding to the level of a martial artist. This cultivation method is clearly preserved in his memory. Among the 9 layers a martial artist needs to cultivate, the first layer is Heavy Heaven. As he progressed to higher layers, cultivation became increasingly difficult. The Hungtan Ninefold Cultivation Art is one of the most widely used cultivation methods in Hungtan Academy. Some people have even managed to cultivate up to the 9th layer, becoming a martial artist of the 9th layer. Currently, among all the teachers in the academy, my strength is the lowest. Most teachers in the academy had already reached the martial artist 4th layer, skin and bone realm. I was the only one still at the 3rd layer, so I absolutely had to cultivate quickly. Following the breathing technique from his memory, Zhangxuan focused his spirit intensely and began to practice. Immediately, many tiny bright particles seemed to appear before his eyes. As he breathed, they were gradually drawn inward. The true qi in his dantian also gradually became stronger. After cultivating for an unknown length of time, Zhangxuan opened his eyes and looked around, unable to help but shake his head slightly. This cultivation speed is too slow. Although he possessed the memories of the body's previous owner, he still retained the memories of his time on Earth. So expecting him to sit still without moving to cultivate was truly a bit difficult, especially after seeing the process of true qi condensation. He became even more frustrated. Condensing true qi is the process of gathering the qi particles in the air, then compressing them together like stacking wood so that the small qi particles combine into a great river.
This cultivation method takes a long time. Some people diligently practice every day, continuously without a single break, yet they still have to wait up to 3 years to fully condense the true qi in their dantian, preparing to cultivate a higher realm. This truly was the cultivation method of dripping water, carving stone. Sitting still in one place just to breathe for so many years? I'd rather be killed right now. That's right. Although the Hungtian Ninefold Cultivation Art is the most common cultivation method here, it is not the strongest method. Therefore, I can use the Library of Heaven's path to find the flaws in this technique, and then figure out how to modify it. Wouldn't that make my cultivation much faster than before? Suddenly, an idea struck him. Cultivation methods are also divided into various levels of strength. The stronger the method, the faster the cultivation. Conversely, the weaker the method, the slower the cultivation. So a stronger method must have fewer flaws, right? If it were anyone else, they certainly would have no way to modify a cultivation method. But he was different. He had the Library of Heaven's path in his hand, so he could let the library handle finding the flaws, and then he would figure out how to modify it. This way, he could create a cultivation technique that even the Library of Heaven's path couldn't find any flaws in it. At that point, his cultivation speed would be faster, and his achievements would be significant. Acting on his thought, Zhangxuan quickly stood up, recited the method of the Hongtian Ninefold Cultivation Art, and condensed it in his palm. Boom! It was exactly as he thought. The library in his mind trembled, letting out a boom, and immediately a book with the same name appeared. Gently opening it, the book was densely recorded with the weaknesses of the Hongtian Ninefold Cultivation Art. He hadn't expected it had over 1,000 flaws. Is this the cultivation method I was just practicing? Zhangxuan was astonished. The simple 3rd layer alone had so many loopholes. This was truly unacceptable. This was like eating vegetables contaminated with worms. It was already incredibly lucky that he hadn't been injured by practicing this. What about the other methods? Since he was a teacher, there were quite a few books in his room. There were Four Venerables Canon, Heavenly Meridians Technique, Lotus Meridian Striking Force, etc. Casually picking up a book and flipping through it, the library in his mind immediately formed a similarly named book. It recorded over 3,000 flaws. Even more flaws than the Hongtian ninefold cultivation art. If I wait to find the most accurate method, won't I be exhausted by then? Zhang Xuan felt like going mad after reading a bit. A single manual had over 1,000 flaws. He couldn't possibly determine the most accurate steps. It was like getting lost in a place with over 1,000 small alleys, each with countless forks. Even if the Library of Heaven's Path could determine whether the method was right or wrong, trying to find the most accurate method would certainly exhaust him to death. That's right. The other manuals also contained the breakthrough methods for the martial arts third layer. But the flaws in those manuals were completely different. He suddenly realized. Remembering the manuals he had just checked, he quickly flipped to the breakthrough method for the true key realm. It was truly as he thought. Although all the books had flaws, the flaws in each book were not the same. If a step is not recorded as a mistake in any of the manuals, it must be the correct method. Zhang Xuan's eyes lit up. He quickly found paper and a pen, then opened all the manuals, recording all the correct cultivation steps. In an instant, a new cultivation method was formed right before his eyes.
Let's see if this method has any mistakes. Zhang Xuan chuckled softly. He took what he had just written, and the Library of Heaven's Path trembled again. Then a similar book appeared, but this time only one flaw remained. After diligently studying for a while longer, he finally found a way to fix that last flaw. He used the Library of Heaven's Path to check again. Sure enough, after the modification, the flaw was gone. This cultivation method had become the most perfect version, without a single weakness. This is the most accurate method to break through the third layer. I must try it. Looking at the recorded paper in his hand, Zhang Xuan was overjoyed, nodding repeatedly. He quickly sat down and began to practice. Relax the whole body, pores open to fully absorb spiritual energy. He felt as though he was lying in a bathtub. Every pore was like a living creature that could breathe freely. Following this cultivation method, he was a bit unfamiliar at first, but soon after, he felt a huge amount of spiritual energy descending from all directions. Every pore on his entire body continuously absorbed spiritual energy. Although the speed was not as fast as absorbing from the top of his head, because all the pores on his body were absorbing simultaneously, the speed was incredibly fast. Like hundreds of streams merging into one river, a large amount of spiritual energy in his body combined like a great waterfall rushing towards his dantian. Boom! Boom! An explosion rang out. From a person waiting to break through to the fourth layer, the sound of the key explosion rang out in the blink of an eye. The true key rushed out from his dantian, flowing throughout his entire body, penetrating his bones and muscles, making his spirit feel incredibly refreshed. Martial artist, fourth layer, skin and bone realm. This is truly too fast. Zhang Xuan's eyes widened. According to the records of the Hongtan ninefold cultivation art, given his current level, even if he spent 3 to 5 months, and even if he encountered good fortune, he might not successfully break through. Yet after modifying the technique to remove its weaknesses, he broke through to a higher layer in almost no time at all. 10 minutes? Or 5 minutes? It probably didn't even take 3 minutes, and he had already successfully broken through. Although he only modified the breakthrough method for the martial artist's third layer, the quality of the true key he condensed was much purer and stronger than the true key he had cultivated previously. If the previous true key was a cloudy pile of muddy sludge, the current true key was like pure, clear spring water, without a single impurity, making it look as bright as a mirror. True key is usually divided into 3 different grades: high, medium, and low. The higher the quality of the true key, the clearer and purer the color, and the faster the cultivation. His previous true key was cloudy, certainly at the lowest grade of the 3 true key grades. The condensed key now was so clear that one could see the bottom, meaning this true key was at least at a grade higher than the 3 common true key grades.
Didn't they say that to cultivate true Qi at a grade higher than the three mentioned, one must cultivate to the saint or god grades? The Hongtan ninefold cultivation art was only at the lowest grade among the entire grades, so how could it cultivate true Qi of such quality? It's thanks to the Library of Heaven's Path. Zhang Xuan clenched his hand. Although he practiced the Hongtan ninefold cultivation art, in reality, he had already fixed all the weaknesses within it. It was precisely because of this that he was able to condense such high-grade true Qi. Looking at the flaws recorded in the Library of Heaven's Path, the Hongtan ninefold cultivation art was truly far from being perfect. With the Library of Heaven's Path helping me, can't I write my own cultivation technique up to the saint or god grades? Zhang Xuan's eyes shone.
Speaking of cultivation techniques at the god or saint grade, even the largest clans might not possess them, let alone Hung Tian Academy. Even if those major clans had such techniques, they would surely hide them well. Ordinary people would never be able to see them. So if he could create a cultivation technique at this grade, even if he cultivated for a short time, he would achieve great accomplishments, and his strength would increase faster and faster. I can't continue practicing now. I don't have the cultivation manuals for the fourth layer. I should make a trip to the scripture depository and borrow a few cultivation books from the caretaker. For those practicing the Hongtian ninefold cultivation art, the Academy has a rule. A martial artist must advance and break through to a new layer before having the right to access the cultivation manuals for the next layer. Hence, his place only had the cultivation books for the third layer. He had never seen the fourth layer cultivation books before. Stepping out of the house, it was just evening. There were still quite a few people walking back and forth on the road. Under the bright moonlight, the ground became indistinct, as if covered with a layer of silver. There were quite a few couples secretly dating under the trees, whispering words of affection and love to each other. All this created a peaceful scene. Zhang Xuan didn't have time to pay attention to these things. He quickened his pace. Before long, a tall, large building appeared before him. The scripture depository was divided into two large areas, one for teachers and one for students. It housed all kinds of martial arts methods and precious books of the school, making it one of the most important places in Hung Tian Academy. Elder Mo. Just as he reached the entrance, Zhang Xuan saw an old man sitting hunched over near the main door. Elder Mo was one of the guardians of the scripture depository. No one knew how high his actual strength was. It was only heard that he was a very famous person in the school, but because he hadn't fought anyone for a long time, no one knew his current strength. Oh, you've arrived. Have you broken through to the martial art fourth layer? Elder Mo looked at Zhang Xuan while stroking his sparse beard. Yes, purely by luck. Zhang Xuan didn't hide it. Good. Keep striving in your cultivation. The Academy always needs talented, passionate young people like you. Elder Mo nodded with satisfaction. The fourth layer cultivation books are on the fourth shelf of the martial arts technique section. Go take them yourself. Yes. Zhang Xuan didn't ask further, obediently stepping into the room. As he left, Elder Mo couldn't help but shake his head, speaking sympathetically. A good child, but his innate talent is a bit poor, so his cultivation time is slow. If it were another martial art of the third layer, they would only need 2 years to break through. Yet it took Zhang Xuan 3 years to successfully break through. His talent was truly ordinary. Having reached the martial art fourth layer, he just needs to cultivate diligently. In this way, he can still be a normal teacher. I just hope that in the upcoming teacher evaluation, his results won't be too bad. Zhang Xuan didn't know that Elder Mo was muttering about him. He walked straight into the scripture depository. Although the scripture depository in Hongtian Academy was quite large, no less than his previous workplace, when compared to the library of Heaven's Path in his mind, it was far inferior. The two were not on the same level at all. Walking quickly to the martial arts technique section, Zhang Xuan rapidly found the books on the fourth shelf. Here truly were the fourth layer cultivation methods for the Hongtian nine-fold cultivation art. He took out the book and skimmed through it. Oh! In his mind, a book with the same name as the fourth layer cultivation manual immediately appeared. He opened it and saw that, like the third layer cultivation book, it also had over 1,000 flaws.
Since there are many other books here, I might as well check them all out. Having the experience of the previous breakthrough, Zhang Chuan wasn't in a hurry to look at the flaws, but instead looked at the bookshelf in front of him. The fourth shelf had many types of martial arts technique books, all fourth layer cultivation methods. There were also quite a few books recording the explanations of predecessors. In total, this shelf contained over several thousand books. If it were anyone else, just looking at them would make them dizzy. With so many books, plus many commentary and debate books with completely conflicting cultivation ideas, if one wasn't sure of the correct method and cultivated arbitrarily, they might even suffer a qi deviation. But Zhang Chuan was different. He had the Library of Heaven's Path to help him determine which methods were right and which were wrong. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to pick up another book and read it. Boom! The sound signaled the appearance of a corresponding book. Zhang Chuan didn't stop, but continued to pick up the next book to read. In reality, Zhang Chuan wasn't reading the books now, nor was he trying to select them. He was allowing the Library of Heaven's Path to collect more books. Only by doing so could he easily select the accurate cultivation methods. Clatter. The sound of books being exchanged continuously echoed in the room. Impatient, hot-tempered, and rash. Hearing the sound of the books being swapped, Elder Moore frowned slightly. If he was already practicing the Hongtian nine-fold cultivation art, he shouldn't consider other martial arts. He should value his time, copy the fourth layer cultivation method, and then return to diligently research it. Although there is an old saying, borrowing stones from other mountains to polish one's jade, if one's cultivation knowledge is insufficient, looking at too much will only confuse them more, making them more irritable. In the end, wasting effort is a small matter, but if they are careless, they might suffer qi deviation and never be able to cultivate again. 30 years ago, there was a similar example. A genius teacher thought himself smarter than others, so he tried to read more books than everyone else to invent a unique move suitable for himself. The result was that he read too many cultivation books, couldn't choose which one was right, leading to qi deviation and going mad. Greed leads to loss. This is a life principle and a true story. Cultivating for 3 years just to break through to the real qi realm? With such ordinary talent, he should just content himself with diligently practicing the fourth layer of the Hongtian ninefold cultivation art. Why bother reading so many other books? Isn't it just to show off? So, he was just a superficial, rash person. Initially, Elder Moore had a slightly good impression of Zhang Chuan, but now it was completely gone. A person who specializes in pretending to win favor. After a cold snort, Elder Moore noticed that Zhang Chuan only skimmed through the books and flipped the pages quickly without reading them carefully. At this, his brows furrowed even tighter, feeling extreme disgust towards Zhang Chuan. Although he was a bit rash, if he was willing to diligently research and carefully read each page,
It would still show the virtue of being hardworking and eager to learn. But on the contrary, he was continuously and arbitrarily flipping through the books so quickly, how could he absorb anything? Even he himself couldn't absorb anything, let alone this kid who just reached the martial arts 4th layer. Therefore, there was only one reason. He was pretending to win people over. Truly, this academy is getting worse and worse, no longer what it used to be. After a cold snort, Elder Moore closed his eyes, no longer paying attention to Zhang Xuan.
Done. His reading speed was very fast. Normally he could flip through an entire book in just 1 or 2 breaths. More than an hour passed, and he had flipped through all the martial arts technique books on the 4th shelf. In the Library of Heaven's Path, several thousand books with similar names also appeared. I'll wait until I return to my room to continue researching and come up with the most complete version. Having achieved his goal, Zhang Shen smiled softly and turned to leave. You don't need to copy them down? Seeing Zhang Shen leave empty-handed, Elder Mall couldn't hold him back anymore. No matter how rash he was, he should at least copy a portion of the book to take back and study. What was he thinking coming empty-handed and leaving empty-handed? Was he here to play a joke? No need. I just took a casual look. Because he didn't know the thoughts in the other person's mind, Zhang Shen just smiled gently, replied, and turned to say goodbye. Took a casual look. What a slobby person living without any principles. It seems this academy needs to revise its disciplinary rules. How can such a casual person be a teacher? Elder Mall flicked his sleeve. Martial arts cultivation books are treasures that any practitioner must value. Yet this person only casually flipped a few pages, glanced through them, and immediately returned. Truly worthless. I will talk to the headmaster about this, suggesting he introduce some measures to fix this casual attitude in the academy. Returning to his residence, Zhang Shen took out paper and a pen, writing down the correct 4th layer cultivation methods for the Hung Tian 9-fold cultivation art. Then he flipped through the next books, continuing to record the accurate techniques. After flipping through several books in succession, Zhang Shen rubbed his forehead. In fact, reading thousands of books in this manner was also very cumbersome, not as easy as he imagined. While thinking about how to speed up the reading process, the library in his mind suddenly vibrated. The thousands of books that had just formed in the Library of Heaven's Path seemed to be stitched together by someone, slowly merging into one. Boom! A loud sound. The thousands of books completely merged, forming a single book. The cover of this book had no name. Zhang Shen randomly flipped to a page. This is the compilation of all those books? Just one glance, Zhang Shen's face flushed with excitement. A moment ago, he was still troubled about how to find all the correct martial arts techniques from over thousands of books in a short time, because this was a very difficult, labor-intensive, and exhausting task. But he unexpectedly found that the library had automatically merged them into one book. This book actually has no flaws, automatically selecting the correct cultivation methods and compiling them into an unnamed book that also had no flaws. The content in this book was no longer the content of the Hung Tian 9-fold cultivation art, nor was it the content of any other book. The cultivation method recorded within could be said to have never been seen by anyone. Since this book was automatically filtered and compiled by the Library of Heaven's Path, then let's call it the Heaven's Path Divine Art. He unintentionally thought of this name and decided to name the unnamed book with it. Boom! As if sensing his thought, after a slight tremor, the blank cover now displayed 4 large characters: the Heaven's Path Divine Art.
I should try practicing first. Although he didn't know if this technique still had any flaws, Zhang Xuan didn't hesitate and began cultivating according to the method recorded in the Heaven's Path Divine Art. His whole body's pores opened up to absorb spiritual energy into his body. Below are the names of the first 4 layers a martial artist must pass. Layer 1, Gathering Breath. Layer 2, Dantian. Layer 3, True Qi. Layer 4, Skin and Bone. In the first layer, Gathering Breath, martial artists must learn to sense the surrounding spiritual energy, then gather it into their body, learn to perceive the spiritual energy and simultaneously use their thoughts to control the correct path and movement of the spiritual energy within. In the second layer, dantian, first, the martial artist must open the dantian, as the dantian is the reservoir for spiritual energy. After practicing this layer, the normal person's body changes to become healthier and they officially become a true martial artist. Upon reaching the third layer, true Qi realm, the martial artist must know how to concentrate spiritual energy into the dantian to form their own true Qi. When transitioning to the fourth layer, skin and bone realm, the true Qi previously stored in the dantian automatically moves to other parts of the body, dissolving into every organ, making the body stronger and increasing the endurance of the heart and lungs. At this point, the martial artist truly becomes an expert. The first three layers are merely the basic foundation for martial artists to practice. From the fourth layer onward, they officially become an expert. Their body will no longer be prone to sickness, and they will grow stronger and stronger. The cultivation method in the Hongten ninefold cultivation art primarily relies on true Qi flowing out of the dantian. Because of this, the martial artist's body is improved. Additionally, other parts like bones, muscles, and skin also undergo significant change, strengthening the skin and bone. In contrast, the cultivation technique in the Heaven's Path divine art is entirely different. It relies not only on the true Qi within the body, but also on the spiritual energy absorbed from heaven and earth. To change the body, true Qi and spiritual energy move simultaneously and deeply permeate the organs, increasing the body's absorption speed. Rush, rush, rush. All the spiritual energy gathered together forms a massive stream, like flowing water, entering every meridian, deeply permeating every organ. The true Qi, meanwhile, acts like a road repair worker, moving to supplement any areas the spiritual energy missed or left unrepaired. Soon after, when the body had fully absorbed both the true Qi and spiritual energy, Zhang Xuan's muscles and bones became stronger, as if they had been purified by fire, radiating a gentle, clear, sparkling light. Boom! Boom! He didn't know how many cycles the true Qi had traveled in his body, but after hearing a shocking boom, Zhang Xuan felt his body had broken through some realm, becoming much lighter and more comfortable. The body that had previously felt heavy, as if bound by iron chains, was now completely different. Light and flexible, every movement could be easily and freely executed according to his thoughts. He was now like a tiny caterpillar that had just broken free from its cocoon and become a butterfly. So, cultivation is complete. I've broken through the fourth layer, skin and bone realm. Zhang Xuan opened his eyes wide and looked around. Even now he dared not believe the truth before him. The goal of breaking through the martial artist fourth layer, skin and bone realm, is to escape the physical constraints of the body and enter a new realm, where the body becomes lighter and freer. But how long had he been cultivating? 1 hour? Or 2 hours? It stinks. Hearing the foul odor emanating from his body, Zhang Xuan felt confused. Looking at himself, he realized there was now a layer of dirt all over his body. The skin and bone realm involves absorbing true Qi into the body to excrete internal impurities, helping to refine the tendons and skin, making them stronger. From birth to adulthood, humans consume various foods for survival, causing impurities to accumulate more and more within the body. In the skin and bone realm, true Qi is absorbed to eliminate these impurities, helping the martial artist transcend the current realm, break free from the heavy body, and advance to a new realm where the body becomes lighter and freer. I've heard much about practicing in the skin and bone realm, but I've never seen anyone excrete so much filth as me. Looking at his filthy body, Zhongshuan couldn't stand it any longer. He quickly took out a wooden tub, muttering to himself while bathing. Martial artists at the fourth layer, the skin and bone realm, can shed their skin and change their muscles, making the body stronger. This is a very good thing. However, he had never heard that the skin and bone realm would help people excrete so much filth, causing a strong foul odor to cover his entire body. After a brief bath, he realized that his entire body's muscles had changed drastically, becoming white as youth and shining like a mirror. Even previous scars had disappeared. His body now resembled a newborn, his skin even smoother than a baby's. My true qi! Surprised by the transformation of his body, he inadvertently looked at his dantian and became even more terrified.
The cloudy true qi in his dantian had all turned into clear, water-like streams, radiating a pure aura. He didn't even need to look to know that this qi must be of a higher grade than the 3 basic true qi grades. Not only did it regenerate my body, but the quality of my true qi also increased. The Heaven's Path divine art is truly too formidable. Zhongshuan was utterly shocked. Others needed continuous supplementation to break through the skin and bone realm, and without spending several years cultivating, they certainly couldn't succeed. Yet he, on the contrary, only needed 2 hours to break through. Furthermore, the quality of his true qi also improved. What kind of book did the Library of Heaven's Path create? This is truly too abnormal, stronger than common sense. Time to test my strength a little. After breaking through the skin and bone realm, the next stage is the martial artist 5th layer, peak power layer. Once entering this realm, the cultivator will possess immense power. A few dozen meters away from the dormitory was a stone pillar used to measure force. This type of stone was placed all over the school, allowing students to check their cultivation anytime, anywhere. When a martial artist advances to the 5th layer, peak power realm, their body immediately acquires an extremely powerful force. Their left and right arms can deliver punches weighing up to 1,000 kilograms. This level of strength is no longer ordinary human strength. It is equivalent to the strength of bulls and horses. After cultivating according to the content recorded in the Heaven's Path divine art, Zhongshuan's body had changed. His tendons and bones were strengthened, and he successfully broke through the skin and bone realm. Therefore, he wanted to test his strength to see how high it was and whether he possessed the great strength people often spoke of. Concentrating his thoughts, striving for stillness, his feet touched the ground, his knees suddenly bent, his back and body coiled like a large bow, and his arms shot out like an arrow towards the stone tablet, flashing with dazzling streams of light. Boom! After Zhongshuan punched the stone pillar, a stream of light appeared and moved around it. 5 dings, peaks. A number appeared on the stone pillar. This, how can this be? Zhongshuan's pupils contracted, his face staring blankly at the stone pillar. Is this real or fake? Normally, in the peak power realm, the strength in the initial stage is equivalent to 1 peak, the middle stage is equivalent to 2 peaks, the late stage is equivalent to 3 peaks, and the peak stage is equivalent to 4 peaks. He had just broken through the skin and bone realm, just reached the peak power realm, and he already had the strength of the highest level, 5 peaks. What exactly happened? It was truly too surprising. After a long while, Zhongshuan regained his composure and speculated inwardly. He knew very well whether he was a genius or not. The most logical reason for this issue was that he cultivated according to the Heaven's Path divine art. This cultivation technique not only helped improve his body, shed his skin, purify his true qi, and elevate its grade beyond the 3 basic true qi grades, but also rapidly increased his strength. That's why he, having just stepped into the martial artist 5th layer peak power realm, already had the strength of the highest level, 5 peaks. Truly, too terrifying. Only a few outstanding teachers in the academy have reached the martial artist 5th layer peak power realm. Other teachers, like Cao Shuang, who had a similar level of strength to him, could not reach this realm at all. My current strength is already at this level. Perhaps I should go find the cultivation books for the 5th layer.
It's not too late yet. The teacher at the scripture depository probably hasn't closed yet. Zhang Xuan scratched his head and went to the scripture depository again. To prevent people from recklessly cultivating high-level techniques beyond their actual strength, the academy had a rule. Cultivation must be appropriate to one's level. One can only view the manuals for their current level and not higher-level ones. In just a moment, Zhang Xuan arrived at the scripture depository. "Why are you here again?" Seeing Zhang Xuan, Elder Mo, the guardian of the depository, frowned and asked, "What was this impulsive brat doing, coming back so soon after leaving?" "Elder Mo, I want to view the cultivation manual for the 5th layer," Zhang Xuan replied awkwardly. He couldn't tell the truth that he had just broken through in such a short time. If he revealed the truth, even if the opponent didn't beat him to death, they would lock him up as a guinea pig for research. Since there wasn't a major change in true qi between the skin and bone realm and the peak power realm, as long as the opponent didn't understand true qi, no matter how strong they couldn't see his current level. Even if Elder Mo had formidable strength, he wouldn't realize that Zhang Xuan had just returned for a moment and already broken through to the next level. 5th layer martial arts manual? What do you want to do now? Elder Mo's face darkened, and the last bit of fondness he had for this person vanished completely. He neither copied nor practiced the 4th layer manual, yet he dared to run here to borrow the 5th layer manual. Was he chink? Elder Mo, actually, when I was recruiting students today, a parent asked me about a martial artist 5th layer cultivation problem, and I didn't know how to answer. So that parent scorned me a bit. That's why I want to look ahead a little to find the answer, so that later if I encounter a similar situation, I can answer fluently. Zhang Xuan had prepared an excuse early, and he said it quickly. It's true that some parents have bad temperaments. Hearing Zhang Xuan's explanation, Elder Mo nodded seriously. You can look, but absolutely do not try to practice it. You haven't even finished practicing the 4th layer. If you practice the 5th layer, you will surely suffer a qi deviation. Not even an insult could save you then. Yes, I understand that, Zhang Xuan hastily replied. All right, going in. Elder Mo waved his hand and continued to close his eyes. The 5th layer technique is on the very last shelf. Yes, Zhang Xuan quickly walked inside. Deceitful, vain. Seeing him walk in, Elder Mo opened his mouth again and added 4 words to his evaluation of Zhang Xuan. What's wrong with being questioned by a parent? After all, he's just the lowest-ranked teacher. It's perfectly normal if he can't answer. But instead, to pretend he's knowledgeable, he deliberately ran here to preview the 5th layer technique. If this isn't deceitful and vain, what is it? Tomorrow I must go see the headmaster to discuss this. This kind of rash, impulsive teacher should be expelled from the academy sooner rather than later. Elder Mo coldly snorted and quietly made his decision. That vain person, who doesn't even bother to cultivate properly. Keeping such a person in the academy would only destroy the discipline and norms of the academy. Zhang Xuan had no idea that because of just these 2 meetings, he had been put on Elder Mo's list of people to be expelled from the school. If he knew, he would probably be neither laughing nor crying at this situation. In reality, everything he said earlier was just an excuse. His current cultivation level had already reached this stage. Therefore, he couldn't let the lack of a cultivation technique waste the time he could be spending advancing further. Before long, Zhang Xuan found the 5th layer cultivation manuals on the last shelf. In this academy, the most famous, powerful person had just reached the martial artist 5th layer. Therefore, anyone who could cultivate to the 6th layer, acupoint opening realm, would be qualified to become an elder of the school.
This place was only the teacher's section of the library, so there were no records of sixth-layer techniques. The fifth-layer techniques were placed on the very last shelf. The fifth-layer cultivation books are much fewer than the fourth-layer cultivation books. Both were cultivation manuals, but the fourth-layer ones were numerous, reaching 2,000 or 3,000 volumes. Meanwhile, the fifth-layer books numbered at most around 1,000 volumes, less than half the amount of the fourth-layer manuals. In fact, if one thought about it carefully, this was quite normal. Everything must progress from low to high. The higher the level, the more difficult it is. Thus, fewer people achieve high cultivation. Although this academy has existed for quite some time, the number of people who could become martial artist fifth layer would certainly be much less than those who reached martial artist fourth layer. That's why there were so few fifth layer records and cultivation books here. Shaking his head, not wanting to think about these things anymore, Zhang Xuan casually pulled out a book and started reading. More than half an hour later,
Returning home again, Zhang Xuan continued his previous action, reviewing all the books just copied in his mind to find the accurate sentences and sections. Before long, the library created another book, but this time it was no longer an unnamed book. The 4 large characters, Heaven's Path Divine Art, were already written on the cover. With the book ready, Zhang Xuan continued to cultivate. The martial artist fifth layer, peak power realm, is essentially an upgrade to the skin and bone realm. The goal is simple: for the cultivator to skillfully control their true qi. Each substage will have a different level of strength. In essence, the peak power realm is the layer that trains and enhances the coordination between true qi and muscles. The better the coordination, the greater the strength generated. Seeing the descriptions of the peak power realm in the Heaven's Path Divine Art, Zhang Xuan stopped thinking, concentrated his spirit, and carefully controlled the clear, water-like true qi in his dantian, gradually moving it throughout his body, fully dissolving it into the body's parts. The Heaven's Path Divine Art truly deserves to be a remarkable technique with thousands of books compiled within it. Following the method recorded in the book, Zhang Xuan's cultivation speed increased rapidly. The true qi also quickly moved to the muscles and dissolved into them. Peak Power Realm Initial Stage, Peak Power Realm Middle Stage, Peak Power Realm Late Stage, Peak Power Realm Pinnacle. Boom! Boom! After 2 hours, Zhang Xuan's body shook again. He opened his eyes, his expression full of surprise and excitement, as if he could barely believe this fact. I've become a martial artist fifth layer pinnacle expert? He had thought he needed a lot of time to cultivate to the martial artist fifth layer, but he couldn't have imagined, even in his dreams, that thanks to practicing according to the method recorded in the Heaven's Path Divine Art, he only needed 2 hours, just like before, to reach the fifth layer pinnacle. For the original owner of this body, cultivation was a task as difficult as ascending to heaven. But conversely, for someone with the Heaven's Path Divine Art like Zhang Xuan, cultivation was as simple as eating and drinking every day. Spending only about half a night, he had cultivated from a martial artist third layer, true qi realm, to the martial artist fifth layer pinnacle. This was truly beyond imagination. Furthermore, he only stopped because he didn't have the sixth layer cultivation method and didn't know which acupunctures to open correctly. If he had the sixth layer technique ready here, he would surely have successfully broken through by now, becoming a martial artist sixth layer acupuncture opening realm, a strong expert in Hongtan Academy.
The martial artist's sixth layer, acupoint opening realm, requires cultivating by opening all the acupoints in the body. Wherever an acupoint is opened, the true qi there will become stronger, and the strength will also increase greatly. It is said that there are a total of 108 acupoints on a person's body, but only 72 can be opened. To open all these acupoints, one must follow a specific sequence. Because everyone's physique is different, the sequence for opening acupoints is also different for each person. One must follow the correct sequence to achieve the best effect. Otherwise, if done incorrectly, one can at best only open 30 to 40 acupoints in their lifetime and cannot progress any further. This is very similar to cleaning the mud in a river. If one gradually clears the mud from the headwaters to the end of the river, one can clear all the mud in the river. Conversely, if one starts clearing the mud in the middle of the river first, not only will they fail to clear the river, but they might also clog the water flow, preventing it from continuing to flow. This is also the principle for opening acupoints. If the acupoints are not unlocked according to the correct sequence, other acupoints might be blocked, and as a result, one might never be able to open any more acupoints in their lifetime. Therefore, before having the technique, Zhang Shen did not dare to cultivate recklessly. But calculating it, he didn't need to rush. Breaking through 2 major levels in just one night, for others, this was already a very fortunate thing, so he was very satisfied with his current level. Unless absolutely necessary, it's best not to reveal my true cultivation level. As a transmigrator, he had watched many books and TV shows about this issue in his past life, and he clearly remembered the principle that the outstanding are often resented. He was originally the worst teacher in the school, yet he suddenly became a martial artist 5th layer expert in one night, possessing the power of the 5th layer pinnacle. If this news reached others, it would be strange if they didn't come looking for trouble. Therefore, the fact that he reached the peak power level pinnacle should be kept a secret from everyone. The more secretive, the better. Let's test and see what level my strength has reached this time. Having decided, Zhang Shen once again walked to the force-measuring stone pillar. Others only had the strength of 1 peak when reaching the peak power level initial stage. He, however, had the strength of 5 peaks. Now that he had reached the pinnacle, he wanted to check exactly what level his strength had reached. Boom! The force-measuring stone pillar flashed with dazzling light, then 2 words appeared. 8 peaks. The strength of 8 peaks? A strength nearly equal to experts who have opened 4 acupoints in the acupoint opening realm? Zhang Shen's eyes lit up. Normally, reaching the peak power level pinnacle would grant the strength of 4 peaks. Later, upon reaching the acupoint opening realm, every time an acupoint is opened, the strength increases by 1 more peak of power. He had only reached the peak power level pinnacle and already had the strength of 8 peaks, equivalent to the strength of a 6th-layer expert who has opened 4 acupoints. The Heaven's Path divine art is truly something else, so formidable. Zhang Shen praised it happily. He was about to find something to eat and then go to bed to recover after such a long period of continuous practice, when he suddenly heard a strange noise. It's already night. Why is someone coming here? Zhang Shen frowned. As his cultivation increased, his hearing and eyesight also improved. He clearly heard a sound not far away. Someone was hiding outside, looking towards this dormitory area. Looking along that person's line of sight, the place he's observing is my room, so he has definitely not spotted where I'm standing yet.
Zhang Xuan was not in his room at the moment. He was standing behind the force-measuring stone pillar, a certain distance from the dormitory courtyard. Because he had suppressed his aura, the opponent had not yet detected him. Let's see who wants to pick a fight with me. He hadn't expected that right after finishing his cultivation, someone would want to cause trouble for him. Zhang Xuan's heart was filled with questions. Reviewing the memories of the original owner of this body, although he was often bullied, sneaking into his house in the middle of the night to kill him had never happened. No matter who it is, I can't let him recognize me. Just as he was about to go over and teach the opponent a lesson, Zhang Xuan suddenly thought of a problem. Everyone in the academy currently knew him as a useless person who had only reached the martial artist's 3rd layer, true Qi realm. So, if he revealed that he was now a martial artist 5th layer pinnacle expert, wouldn't that shock everyone greatly? Moreover, once this news spread, he would surely become the object of research for many people. Therefore, no matter who the opponent was, he couldn't let them recognize that he was Zhang Xuan. Thinking this, Zhang Xuan remembered the experts he had seen in movies in his previous life.
Then he casually tore a piece of cloth from the corner of his sleeve and tied it over his face. Whoosh! Fully equipped, Zhang Xuan lightly tapped his foot on the ground and, using the cover of night, slowly approached the opponent. Although his cultivation had just risen and he had never learned any martial arts for self-defense, thanks to the Heaven's Path divine art, his current strength was immense. Also, due to his familiarity with the terrain, he easily moved to a spot 10 meters behind the opponent, still undetected. At such a close distance, he saw the opponent was masked, wearing a black outfit and hiding in the darkness, so he couldn't tell who the person was. Brat, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for being recklessly lustful, daring to lay hands on our young lady. Hiding behind a large tree, looking towards the figure lurking in the dark, Zhang Xuan faintly heard the opponent muttering. This voice sounds familiar. Zhang Xuan frowned. He had heard this voice before, but he couldn't recall where. Whoosh! Whoosh! While contemplating whether that voice was one he had personally heard, or from the original owner of this body's memories, the opponent flew towards his dormitory. Their wrist moved slightly. A light flashed. A sharp dagger had appeared in the opponent's hand.